Hello everyone, welcome to Homemaking Radio. I'm Mrs. Sherman, and if you are new here, please go to the link in the description box on the channel and go and see what else I have besides watching this video on the page. And I've had my grandson here. He has been with me for quite some time because Mr. S and his brother went on their yearly trip around the states that they go on, and I never go with them because they drive like maniacs through the desert, where there's nothing there, and I don't like being in the back seat, and I have so much to do here, and I'm making progress. So ladies, my grandson has also showed me how to include a little bit of background music. I don't know if I'm going to like it, but we're going to give it a try, and if I'm irritated by it, I will turn it off. And so today I have a couple of things to show you before you go, and this is designed to work or listen to while you work like you would radio in the olden days. And so before I go, I want to show you that I got myself a teacup at Home Goods. I haven't been there in about a year, and I found this, and it's got the strawberry roses and strawberries on it. I'll try to get a better picture for you. You can't really see it there. And normally I don't buy teapots anymore because they take up a lot of room. And they're fun to have, but, in the manse here and in smaller living quarters that most people have, where are you going to put them? But I do use them. I use one or two when I have company or when I have some kind of event here at the manse. So I got the matching teacup, and this comes in a box with two of these, and it's called Rachel Ashwell Shabby Chic, and it's in a gift box at Home Goods. If you go and look, they've usually tucked them under on a lower shelf, and they stick them behind things, and I guess they're marked by people that want them. And but this is the only one that was there that I could get, and I had my eye on another one, but when I second guessed myself, came home, and then a few days later went back, and of course it wasn't there. And so today my routine with you ladies is, yes, thank you, to get my grandson has downloaded a bunch of concerts and things to see if I like it, and I enjoyed the applause, but before you go to do your work, there are so many things that you need to do first. You've got to get yourself together. You've got to get your head together. I would suggest start out your morning with a serious cup of tea, no matter what kind. It doesn't have to be black tea. Put something in a cup and drink it, some honey and a bit of lemon. Drink it, go out and stand on the deck and look outside, and even if it's raining, we are having rain. And I'd like to turn my camera and show you, but it would depress you, and I want you to go away feeling good. We are having rain, but we should enjoy it, and it's all for the best. And it gives us a new atmosphere in the home. And I was telling my grandson, it just feels like we've rented a place in the rainy woods. It just gave it a whole new look. The light is different. Everything is different. And I told him how when my children were growing up, we used to pretend in the mornings, sometimes when we felt really isolated, that we were on a ship. So we catered to their staterooms. We brought them breakfast in their staterooms, and we had activities that were similar to what a cruise ship would be like. And we would look up to how far we had gone on a map, and just whiled away a day on a cruise ship. But anyway, one of the reasons to get ready in the morning, and start with your serious cup of tea, and take your little notebook out there and wherever you are, and write down what you would like to do and what you want to do. I always have what I have to do, what's urgent, and what I would really like to do if that all gets done. And of course that always includes my sewing or rearranging a room in some way. I have to be very careful about some of that to not get started in a project that's going to end up being stressful to me. So to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally is so important for homemaking. It is it's more important. What you're doing is more important than what a world leader does, really, because you are leading the world, especially if you have people around you. Even those of you with no children, no grandchildren, no spouse, what you're doing is more important than anything that anyone else does, because it has meaning to it. It's not meaningless pricing things or stocking shelves that you would do over and over that has no personal meaning to you. It is something that has deep meaning to you. And I was talking to my one of my children, and all my children are in their 40s now, but I was saying to him, you've got to stay with your base. When you were growing up as a homeschooler, you had the things that you loved. You loved drawing, and you loved writing, and you loved teaching, because every time they had a homeschool lesson of any kind, and in those days we didn't have much in the way of curriculum, so we just used what we had, map books and a dictionary and a chalkboard. And I said, after you have learned it, I want you to teach it back to me. And that way I taught them how to teach me back, and then they would be rehearsing their lesson again so that I would be able to be sure that they had absorbed some of it. And so I said to him, you need to stay with your base, stay with what you loved. You loved to draw. And when he would draw, it would be so beautiful. He just did it so naturally. I would want him to show me how he did it, so he could teach it. And then I said, now that you're drawing, and he liked to write too, so he had a little newspaper that he wrote, and he would put some of his drawings in it. And he took a cartooning course. I bought him a book on cartooning where you could teach a lesson through cartoons, and he put that in his newsletter. So I said, stay with your basic grounding type of learning and beliefs, so that it will always anchor you in stress as you get older. You know, I read you that scripture. It says that the old paths to enjoy the days of your youth before the hard times come. And so there's the stresses come, and the responsibilities come. So ladies, I told him, stay with your art, stay with your music. He loved music. Before he could even play any instrument, he could sing. But he also loved to listen to my old records. And in those days we had the vinyl records, but he loved the classics, Beethoven, Mozart, all the ones. And he even went further. He found more. He would find, as time developed and they developed the CDs, he would get a variety collection of different kinds of artists and then learn more about them. And he knew more about them than I did. And he had a book called The Spiritual Lives of the Great Composers, and he had learned which ones honored God and believed in God, and which ones rejected him, and through some historical writings that they had, and could see it in their music. It's the same with literature. Everybody can write their own literature. You can make up your own music. You can sing your own special song, and you can do your own, make your own music. I said, stay with those things, because the Bible talks about all of them. You know, was it Saul that wanted David to come and play for him because it soothed his troubled emotions? And so music does have a deep effect on us. And if you don't know very much about it, you can at least hum a tune. And so last time I was talking to you, I was talking about tea, and I was talking about tea abuse. And I have to apologize now, because I got so many responses on that from people who said, well, I like my tea, where the tea bag is soaked in there and it's so strong and everything, and it doesn't bother me. But so I guess everybody's different. I always tell you that, and I forgot when I was saying, when I was calling people tea abusers by leaving the tea bags in there to soak so long that it had lost its flavor. And it reminds me of an old book from the 1800s I was reading, and this lady was eating a stew in a inn that she was in, and she said, this meat has surely been boiled, and it's lost all its flavor." And that's the way it is with those teas. They're so delicate, especially the tisanes and the herbals and the fruity teas. Not the black tea, but but I do have to apologize. Everybody's different. Some people do like it really, really strong. So you've got to prepare yourself for the homemaking. So come along with me and let's just forget the world out there and focus a little bit. Find something to do. We're going to get dressed and get yourself ready pretty soon. But you've got to prepare yourself emotionally and mentally, because you can use your delight after a while doing the same things over and over the same way. I try not to do that. You don't have to do everything the same way. You can change your routines. You can do things a bit differently. Sometimes you just know it's time for a change. You can do things a little bit differently. So if you get too emotionally and physically tired, you can lose your delight in it all. Whereas the home, there is nothing better. I mean, this is it. If you if you feel you've failed in the home, I don't know what I can say, because I don't think anyone actually fails. I think they just need to pick themselves up and start all over and give it another try. Maybe do things a different way. Homekeeping, and in just keeping the peace too. But to avoid getting emotionally and physically tired. And that's why people used to sit down after they had done a job, hung the clothes on the line, or been out in the garden, or swept the floor. They'd sit down and they'd have a cup of tea or coffee, and they had their pile of books beside them, and would sit down and do their reading. They'd say, "I'm going to catch up on my reading." And they had, you could get these magazine racks, or they just leave them in a pile on the end table. And so home living, if you're new at this, you're just going to have to find your way, because you will observe how life regulates you. The morning sun, the hunger, the fact that you need clean clothes, or you need to go somewhere, is going to regulate how you run your home. You're going to start figuring it out. And if you have been used to being in a institution, whether it's a learning institution or a commercial institution, and you've spent most of your days there and they have regulated you, it's going to be quite an adjustment, because now you're going to have self-control and you're going to have to regulate yourself. But for the most part, it's not going to be too difficult if you just follow the day. What time of the day do you naturally wake up? What time of the day do you naturally feel that you need to prepare food? When does your refrigerator need cleaning? When do you need to have a friend over? When do you need, I was reading in the Jane Austen diet book by Brian Kozlowski how the Austenites kind of knew when they needed to have some social life. They needed some company. And they also knew when they needed to have quiet. Unfortunately, the world out there pushes us into a constant life of social, and it's not good for us. Do you ever find an institution or a business that encourages people to be individual, independent, quietly thoughtful? Very, very few. Most everything is done in a group. But one of the beauties of being home is that you can function yourself, even with your family around you. Everyone is an individual, and they all have their own things that they do, own interests. So in order to get ready now, kids, here's a list for you. You need to bathe and dress. And then fix your hair, and if you wear makeup, paint your face on. I have gone into the Jane Austen, sort of been looking at some of their hairstyles and stuff, and been trying to follow that, which is kind of a no makeup, fresh, healthy look, which requires very little. But I do put I make a lotion for myself in my hand, a couple drops of almond, I don't know if it's almond oil, I don't know what it is, it's natural anyway, and a little bit of frankincense essential oil, and there was something else, some vitamin C. And I put that on my face after washing it. And I've kind of stopped using soap or anything unnatural. And I have been ordering a soap called a honey soap, and it's got just a couple of other ingredients. I'll try to bring it to the table here next time and just show you and read the ingredients on, show you where I get it. And of course, I am vital, so I know my skin is cracking, and so I'm being a little bit more careful about what I do. But the list would be preparation. I call it prep. The first thing in the morning is prep. You get your serious cup of tea, you sit down and make your serious list. And this might include your exercise. It's of course getting bathed and dressed, fixing your hair, brushing your teeth, saying your prayers. And of course, I want to remind you, ladies, how important it is to pray for the members of your own family. Some of you who have lost maybe a grown child to a weird philosophy, or he's just rejected the family and decided to go wild, you need to concentrate on praying for the others that are still home. And some of you who have whose children are still with you need to sit down and pray in front of them for them, so that they know what you expect of them and they know what you're asking God to do in their lives. How many times do kids grow up not quite knowing what their parents prayed about? And you need to be sure that you overcome that shyness and pray for your little children. Pray for them. Pray for their improvement in life and for good qualities that you want them to have, like politeness and cleanliness and neatness and love and family bonding and things like that. To spend your prayer time for your family members. There might not be anybody else that prays for them. Have you ever thought how many people are praying for your husband? It might be your prayers, the only prayers that are sent out for your husband. And so then after that, so take care of your teeth, do a few exercises. And when I do exercises, I just do one of each thing. I don't stand there and do 10 arm raises or 10, toe touches. I do one of everything, just an overall 10-minute or 5-minute stretching this way and that way. But I don't, I'm not in the military. So, and then the other thing would be go for a quick walk at least 20 minutes before breakfast. And the thing is, your appearance, I even, I go ahead and get ready, and I'm even dressed up for my exercises or for my prayers or for, if the only thing that I do is go and stand out on I call it the deck, 'cause it's always raining here. So I stand out on the deck. I'm dressed for it, and I feel like I have direction, and this is what it will give you, is some kind of feeling of direction because now you're not motivated or regulated by anybody in society or in the commercial world. So your home, the results is all up to you in the home. And so even if the only thing you get done during the day is to clean that kitchen, you've done something very, very important and worthwhile. I'm sure you could sit down with someone else and write down what all you've done if you have a clean kitchen or a clean bathroom, what all that involves, and how that impacts the welfare and well-being of your family, and just how important that is. I think that we allowed society to tell us that these things didn't matter, that it wasn't worth staying home for, and made us feel rather ashamed because it seemed so trivial and lacking in intelligence, but that's not true at all. So another thing I wanted to warn you about for homemaking is to alter your sitting and your standing jobs, so that whenever you can, cleaning the kitchen, you're usually standing. I have tried having a taller chair in there and moving around that way, but it doesn't work that way. But after that, you can sit down and sort things or fold some clothes, but it's mostly standing in homemaking. But I discovered some exercise that people use who are mainly computer bound for their jobs, and everything's front. But before we had computers, ladies, everything a homemaker did was from the front. And these exercises showed how you could, pull your arms back, and how you could push your feet back, and how you could do some exercises in the opposite of what your normal, position would be in the home. So even before, we did have a problem with it, especially as our children were little. You're in a kind of a half standing position much of the time, picking up things, taking care of children, taking care of things. And so you have to find these exercises that are for people who are seated or do desk work a lot, because it's similar. So this is very important. And alter your sitting and standing. And that's the point I wanted to make. The other thing that I used to do, and I sort of stopped doing it when the stereos were gone. Remember, every home had a box of some kind. It was a nice piece of furniture, but it was a place where you put your vinyl records, and it had two speakers connected, but it was all one piece, and it was called a stereo. And we used to put some music on. That's where we got albums, big albums that had all the soft music, and it was also some classical music that I liked. Put that on in the morning, and it had such a beautiful sound, and it just permeated all the rooms of the house, and it had a feeling of wellness. Good music does that. But then over the years, when things changed, it got kind of tinny sounding and irritating, and it was different machines. I mean, after a while, you couldn't fix the stereo when it broke, and it was you see these all in the used stores and the secondhand shops and the Goodwills. You sometimes see some of these stereo units. They look like little cabinets. They look like little end tables, or maybe buffets. That's what they look like. You could use them for other things too. But when it got smaller, and you just put a CD in, it didn't have the same sound. And the other day, I was cleaning house, and so my grandson had finished work, and he put on his playlist, and we had bought some speakers. And oh, was it ever beautiful. And I remembered all the old tunes that we used to play when my children were growing up, and it balanced my thinking and balanced my brain. And also, a gloomy day was made more meaningful through this beautiful, beautiful music from the, I would say, the 17 to the 1800s. And because he had a wonderful playlist. And so I just wanted to encourage you to do that, have some music, and have quality sound if you can get it. Now that you're home, I wanted to tell you a little bit. I know I want you to go and be working and not watching, but I do have something to show you here. You remember I told you about the Ideals magazines. Well, I have one here, and it's from Tennessee. They printed them in Tennessee recently in the 1990s. But they had, I'll just show you what they had. Just so much beauty in them. Like this would be the month. This was put out in the month of Mother's Day, and it would show things that would actually be growing at that time, and it had the beautiful spread of this beautiful bouquet of lilacs, and beautiful sketches, artwork, and sayings and poetry on the wings of early morning. And it says, on the wings of early morning, when day is at its best, share all its lovely freshness, come now and be my guest. And it just shows this lovely tea table in front of a little window. If you can possibly maneuver it, get away from the dining area, the place where you eat all the time, and create a little place for yourself by a window in another part of the house. Maybe in front of the living room there might be room for a little table. And a lot of people have done that, just to give another place to go to sit, to sip tea, or to have your sandwich for lunch. Just a different place. When you think of all the times we eat at home, it's really nice to have different places to go. And of course, I've got the manse all set up where you can just go into any room and turn the kettle on. But there's Mary Cassett. painting. It was copyright free, Mary Cassett, and so I wanted to. The reason I'm showing this to you, and this was, I'm trying to think who that artist was. Harrison Fisher. I used to just put a lot of these on my blog. Harrison Fisher. I really liked his sketches and drawings, and the children in the gardens, and just the fun of all that, because I wanted to compare it to this. Now, last time I mentioned this Victoria magazine, which is put out every 2 months, I said, oh, it's not about homemaking, but anyone who reads it is going to be sitting in their home, and it's not about anything political. It's not about exactly only the home, but it will take a visit, to somewhere. There's a story in here called "The Lure of an Old House," and it has pictures similar to, like, here's some water here. And so, like I'm saying, it doesn't have any political agenda, and it's not going to pull you into the women's movement or anything like that. That just puts more stress and burden on people to think about, or to think they have to do something about. Mostly, it is about houses and homes, and they'll show interiors, interesting interiors, and tea. And so it is very similar to the ideals. The only thing is the pages are not as quality, which I would really want that. And sometimes they'll visit someplace, either in the U.S. or in another country, and do photograph the interior that's very old, worldly, almost what you would call, what are they calling it these days? Tatarian or something. And it's so interesting to see. And of course there's food and things like that in it, and I recommend it highly if you're a homemaker, that has to be one of your perks, besides your serious cup of tea. And so, ladies, I don't know how long I have been talking here, because my screen is split. And so now that you're home, and I've shown you some of these pictures in here, can give you some ideas. And the best idea it can give you is that you're home and you are free to make your house a beautiful, beautiful place. And there's so many opportunities to do that. You can get ideas. You can use what you have. You can also go to places that have all these products, and even without buying them, get inspired by it. Get excited about doing something with what you have. And I was reading an article the other day somewhere about architecture, and how some modern architecture, fortunately, people are going back and trying to build houses similar to the beauty of the Victorian houses, but more convenient, with all the modern conveniences that have the beauty and yet the warmth of the modern, your electric and all that you need, and good plumbing, and but how architecture could get so ugly that our towns, some of our newer towns, not very pretty, not interesting to go to. And sometimes you can get quite depressed. You go to a grocery store, it's not very interesting, or just anywhere that you have to go. If you're traveling, you have to stop, and the places you have to stop are so commercial and not interesting. But with the control you have over the home, you can make it really, really nice, really, really beautiful. So you're free. And you're not hindered. You're free to make your house as beautiful. You could ignore the ugly architecture in the towns. And of course, we do have, if you travel the old highways, you're going to go to the old towns, and those are very, very nice. I mean, if you're interested in really lovely architecture and storefronts. Now, another thing I wanted to talk to you about in the home and dealing with the home is that you need to have some things lined up to go to rescue you if you have a day in which maybe all your plans fell through, no one's coming over, the invitations were canceled, or something you needed to do and go out to do you couldn't, or just a day that kind of somehow your plans fell through, or even your homemaking didn't quite work out. You need to have some things put aside to do, to go to on a day when you need to be encouraged and cheered up a little bit more. And also, I wanted to tell you to be sure to ask God to help you take care of your home if it gets a little overwhelming. I have talked to you quite a bit about that room because I've got a garage behind this wall here that was turned into a room, but it still collected, just magically collected storage, and it just has that atmosphere or something in it. It always worried me, and I even have dreams about it. Well, I'm making progress. It's getting better, and I have a giveaway table. So anything that's I can't use again, or if it's just broken, or if it's just because I didn't have time to take it to Goodwill, I put it out on my giveaway table, and it's pretty amazing what people will take. I don't know what they use everything for, but I have even given away things that just absolutely don't work anymore or have a piece missing, and I'll put a note on it, as to what's wrong with it, and somebody will still come and get it. So I haven't had any trouble getting rid of things at my giveaway table. And if you have a place to put a giveaway table, maybe at the end of your lawn, near the curb of the road or the driveway, you would be amazed at how much you could get rid of. I don't take them to Goodwill anymore because they charge people so much for it. It's almost can get things cheaper at some of the big box stores and the dollar stores and Walmarts than to go to Goodwill. And so I just would rather have the people in the community in the area where I live out on the farmland. I'd rather them have it and have it for free. And also they know that I was probably the only one that had it for years and years. They know what kind of home it came out of, and they know what my stuff is like. So I even had a young couple came and they said, we really like your stuff and we wanted to tell you what we did with that old such and such. They had made something for their daughter out of a piece of furniture. It was just a little wood table that was very, very small, and they had done something for it, painted it or something, that she just loved it. So I didn't even know who they were, but they came to the door to tell me how much they appreciated the giveaway table. Now, I think it's important to report some good things that have happened and some success, and I want to tell you the good story about the young person who came home, and it was a boy, and I say a boy, a young man, and he had, a lot of people want to have stories about, well, do you know any families where the person came back and got their lives back on track, and do you know anybody? Well, I never did. Well, I remembered now that I do have a story of a young man who came back, and his parents were they had I believe they had home educated him, or he'd been in a private Christian school, but he had gone to work at a very, very young age and got acquainted with somebody who took him off on a wild trip, and he just never would settle down after that. And they said that after he had gone completely broke and his car had quit working, and he realized, he had his head got cleared up. He came home and he told his parents, I'll just live in your. They had a spare room that they rented to someone that was connected, kind of like a carriage house, onto their house. He said, I'll stay up there and then I'll work for Dad for a while. And they have been so happy ever since. And he even got married, and they have a house and children, and it's just like what they had wanted all along for him. So I just wanted to tell you there's good news. People do come back, and for some of you who are in sorrow because of someone who you're related to who's kind of gone off, I know a lot of people will listen to something like that and think that's nothing, so what, who cares, just let people do what they want to do. But I was reading about how totalitarian governments can control people. First of all, they take away their bonding from their families. That's really important. That stands between them. Then they take away their belief in God and in the Bible. They just wipe that out. Recently, we heard of a religion that said the Bible's not really it's not really the truth and everything, and was talking some young people out of it, and then they take away, and it jolts you, and then they take away your education or the way that you were brought up, and told you that none of that matters. And it was just one thing after another to totally disassociate the person from their roots and from their values and from having a grounding and keeping their life on course, so then that they could be controlled. So I think it's really important to report when I hear someone who has come back and how they became more focused and successful in their life. When I talk about successful in life, I mean a family and a home, and not doing things without thought, without plans. And in the home, and whether you're homeschooling or not, but just in the home in general, there will always be, and always has been, a tug between good and evil. And whatever the situation is in your country, you can't wait till that straightens out before you straighten your own life out. Remember, Joshua said, "Choose you this day whom you will serve, but as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord." You can't wait for the globalists to settle down and be defeated, and you can't wait for your country to get the right leader and get the wrong ones out and the right ones in. You just can't. What you have to do is live on a higher plane. Because I was talking about this with my daughter, and she said, well, when Jesus walked the earth, there was a lot of political turmoil, but it's hardly mentioned in the Bible. It's hardly mentioned. And Jesus had, and his apostles and disciples had a goal, and they just kind of wove themselves in and out of all these problems and continued on their goal. So this is what you have to do as a homemaker. I don't care. That's why I say, come away with me for a little while. And that Nora Jones song, "Come Away With Me," just come away for a little while and put that stuff away, and because it won't get the news will not get your dishes done. And the conservatives are just as bad as the liberals and the globalists and stuff, because they talking about the same stuff. They talking about the same subject. Just get your kitchen cleaned up and your house cleaned. Make some progress in your house. Do some little repairs. Paint a little section of a wall. Get everything in repair. Make a list of things to do. Check on your children. Talk to them about their lives. And just kind of live on a different plane, because we're in a different kingdom and we have a different king. So no matter, our lives should always be stable at home, because our king, we have a king forever, and he's different. He's our Lord Christ. And so our husbands, our children, and us, we all live together under the authority of Christ. And so we're going to live this way no matter what. We're going to have our meals, and we're going to have our prayers, and we're going to have I'm going to have my sewing and my singing. And some of you, just get online and find some free singing lessons and learn, or just sing anyway. We're going to live our life at home, and so far we have not been destroyed. And when I think of the last couple of years, and some places you're still kind of restricted and sort of shut down, I think of the home, because it was a place that you could be. And I always said that if any officials came to the door and they objected to me for some reason, I would invite them in and they would have tea. And I would refuse to listen to them until I'd served them a cup of tea. And they would live by my rules once they got in here. So, now, if you remember in Wives and Daughters, Mr. Gibson said 2 words that he was kind of a man that, we've all known people like this, haven't we, in conversation? We've all known people whose words were always significant. No matter what they said, that nothing was ever trivial. Everything had a memory. You always remember it, and it always had meaning. And they didn't just, go on and on about nothing. And he said 2 words I remember, because I watched the movie series that was made on wives and daughters. Really enjoyed that. And he was looking out the window no, see, where was he? He was at the hall, and he was looking out the window after talking to Hyacinth, and it was just like up here in Oregon, wet and rainy and stormy, and all he said, his only line was stormy weather. And when it started to do that here yesterday, that was the one thing that I said. I'm trying to guard the number of words that I speak, so I said, I'm just going to do the Mr. Gibson thing, and all I have to say is stormy weather. So I texted that to my daughter, stormy weather. Now, ladies, if you don't think that you are making any progress in homemaking, and young people, I want to talk to some young people right now. Children at home, if you're listening, learn at least, your mother's going to be not feeling well sometime or away from home for some reason. Please learn at least how to make a sandwich, okay? And one time, one of my sons was telling me that his children got real hungry, and the mother was in the hospital for some reason, and he was looking after them, and they got busy doing something, but a couple of them got hungry, so the older one went into the kitchen and got out some stuff and made a sandwich for the younger one. At least they had watched their parents enough to make a sandwich. Now, he sent me a picture of the aftermath. It was quite a mess. They'd pulled everything out, and there's stuff all over the place, but they got something to eat, and they could survive. So at least know how to make a sandwich. Ladies, at least know how to make a sandwich. I've had drop-in company, or maybe after church I noticed someone wasn't able to go home right away or for some reason, and I'd say, would you like to come over? I'll make you a sandwich. That's very appreciated. At least learn to make a sandwich. Remember Mrs. Elton in Emma. Well, I can make a sandwich. So at least learn to make a sandwich. The other thing that I want to teach some of you younger ones about is this. If you decide to go your own way, become detached from the members of your family, remember, God put each member of the family in a place to help you in some way, to put kind of a wall around you, and you are in a place for a reason, and God put you there. This is your God-given society. But if you decide, I don't want any of this, and I don't have to listen to my father and my mother, and I'm going to go do what I want to do. Here's what it does to the family. You think you can detach yourself from them, and it shouldn't bother them what you're doing. In fact, I heard a young man say one time, he was still a teenager, and he said, well, all this worrying you're doing about me and all the talking and praying you're doing for me, you could be paying attention to the other kids. Now, that's not right at all. Here's the point. If you run off and you start going against your family, the people that are there as your support structure that God put there, what it does is it means that they have to take time out from what they normally like to do that makes their life work and more progress and things that they like to do, your mother especially and your father, instead of getting things done that she'd like to do and doing some family things, and she's spending time praying for you. She's spending time talking to you. You are taking more time by rebelling. And also, the reason that we need to stay within our homes is for the protection. The world out there is not on your side. They're just using you. They're not helping you. They're helping themselves. And I've spoken of this before. If you get on a substance of some kind, whether it's pharmaceutical or not, it's all the same stuff. It alters the mind. Well, that's controlling you, and then someone's making money off of you. And if you stay within your bounds of the family structure, then it prevents you from being dependent on others, from being desperate for a place to live or money or friends. And so there's more to it than that. And so your mother ought to have a talk with you about what all things can happen. You will never get anywhere in life. You think you're going to. But the ones who stay home, ladies, the ones who stay home, and even you homemakers, you stay home, you're going to end up with a little more saved up. And I have heard of young men who stayed home till they were at least in their mid-20s before they got their own home and got married, saved up a substantial amount of money because it wasn't all used up by the world. That when you get yourself in the world's after you have to pay for everything, every single thing. Why not stay where your parents have established themselves and help them a little bit while you stay? So now to end this, I am going to read you a couple of things. So we're going to start out with Mr. Gibson here in Wives and Daughters, Elizabeth Gaskell's Wives and Daughters. So I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs out of Mr. Gibson's association with the people that worked in his, I guess, his doctor's office and his who made the prescriptions. And so I just wanted to read it because Elizabeth Gaskell, she was an author that described everybody and their problems before she sent them on the adventure. Now, if my friends and I were ever writing, we would probably start the adventure and you could conclude what kind of person they were without elaborate descriptions. But all these people in the 1800s, this was the style they wrote. So just bear with me while those of you who have seen the movies know who this is talking about. He's in his office where they're making the prescriptions back in the 1800s, and there are several young men that what he really needed was a son. He really liked to discuss things with these young men that were working for him, but he only had Molly, and he really enjoyed talking to these young men. So this is what this scene is all about here. The cause for the change in Mr. Gibson's wishes, remember previously he had allowed Molly to go and stay with Mrs. Hamley, who was sickly, and be a companion to her and help her a little bit, cheer her up a little bit. And part of the reason was that he sent her was because he had these young men working for him, and he did not want Molly to become interested in any of them. So do you remember in the old days the parents used to send their son or daughter to a grandparent on a farm somewhere just to get them away from someone? I don't know if you remember those days. It wasn't too long ago. It was probably the 1950s. I remember many a broken-hearted young girl that got sent to her grandmother's place somewhere long ways away, many states away, and although thought she was going to die if she didn't go this certain route, when she came back she was not interested anymore in doing that, and she was completely changed. The cause for the change in Mr. Gibson's wishes just referred. Remember, Mrs. Hamley wanted Molly to come for a long time, and finally Mr. Gibson relented and let her go. The cause for the change in Mr. Gibson's wishes just referred to was as followed. It has been mentioned that he took pupils, thank you, rather against his inclination. It is true, but they were a Mr. Wynne and Mr. Cox, the young gentlemen, as they were called in the household. Mr. Gibson's young gentlemen, they were called in town. Mr. Wynne was the elder, the more experienced one, who could occasionally take his master's place, and who gained experience by visiting the poor and the chronic cases. Mr. Gibson used to talk over his practice with Mr. Wynne. That's why I say he just really needed a son, and try to elicit his opinions in a vain hope that some day or another Mr. Wynne might start an original thought of his own. The young man was cautious and slow. He would never do any harm by his rashness. That's a good sign. But at the same time, he would always be a little behind in his day. Still, Mr. Gibson remembered that he had far worse young gentlemen to deal with, and was content with, if not thankful for, such an elder pupil as Mr. Wynne. Mr. Cox, on the other hand, was a boy of 19 or so, with brilliant red hair and a tolerably red face, of both which he was very conscious and much ashamed. I don't know what it was with redheads, but when I was growing up in public school, people just were so fascinated with a red-headed person, and the redhead children were self-conscious about their red hair and their red skin. And I don't know if it was some kind of a stigma or what. And having a red-headed mother, every now and then I got the feeling that that was not acceptable. I don't know what it was that was going on. Nowadays, the big thing is to have a friend who's a ginger, or one of your children are a ginger or a redhead. And having had a red-headed mother, she had 7 children, and none of them were red-headed. Some of us have a little bit of an auburn look in our hair, and my face is red. But so it says that he was conscious and much ashamed of it. He was the son of an Indian officer, an old acquaintance of Mr. Gibson's. Major Cox was at some unpronounceable station in Punjab at the present time. I probably pronounced that wrong. But the year before he had been in England, and had repeatedly expressed his great satisfaction at having placed his only child as a pupil to his old friend, and had in fact almost charged Mr. Gibson with the guardianship as well as the instruction of his boy, giving him many injunctions which he thought were special in this case, but which Mr. Gibson, with a touch of annoyance, assured the Major were always attended to in every case with every pupil. But when the poor Major ventured to beg that his boy might be considered as one of his family, and that he might spend his evenings in the drawing-room instead of the surgery, Mr. Gibson turned upon him with a direct refusal. He definitely did not want Mr. Cox getting acquainted with his daughter. He must live like the others. I can't have the pestle and mortar carried into the drawing-room, and the placing of smelling aloes. Must my boy make pills himself, then? Asked the Major. To be sure, the youngest apprentice always does. It's not hard work. He'll have the comfort of thinking he won't have to swallow them himself, and he'll have the run of the place, and on Sundays he'll have a taste of tamarinds to reward him for his weekly labor at pill making. So I will read more to you later. But they made wonderful scenes. Whoever wrote the script for the movie series did a pretty good job. As I read it, I can see it in that movie. And now I want to read a little bit of Jane Austen to you, if you're not tired yet. I'm not sure I like the background music, but I'm finding it amusing. Okay, exercises in Austen World. Now, he starts out with dance. This is from the Jane Austen Diet by Brian Kozlowski. I've made him an honorary either son or grandson. I can't remember. He's probably about the age of my sons rather than grandsons. So he starts out with dance. Now this reminds me, this description that he does here from the Jane Austen books reminds me of children. When you play music, they like to just jump around. That's the best exercise there is, and I don't know how we got to where we thought we couldn't do that, to jump around. And he talks about how important the type of dance movements are. You could probably get on YouTube and find a free dance video for single dancing by yourself and get a lot of exercise from it. But listen to this. Nothing epitomizes Austen's knack for mixing exercise with pleasure than the whirl of a ballroom. Dancing is called a sport in her novels, something her characters can play at for hours. And as Sir Lucas points out in Pride and Prejudice, there is nothing like dancing. One of the most natural cardio workouts, the urge to move along to music is imprinted on our DNA. 5-month-old babies automatically shake their bodies in response to rhythm, and every culture marks the happiest moments through dance. Isn't that amazing? If you've ever had a child, how they move to music if it has any kind of rhythm to it. It may be possible to do without dancing entirely, says Austen, but when a beginning is made, when the felicities of rapid motion have once been, though slightly felt, it must be a very heavy set that does not ask for more. Garden. Okay, we're talking about exercises in Austen World. Garden. Charlotte may have a teensy double motive in keeping Mr. Collins in the garden and as far away from her as physically possible. Charlotte talked of the healthfulness of the exercise. Remember, she said, and he benefits by the exercise. and owned that she encouraged it as much as possible. But others of the era had deep belief in its benefits, gardening. Since 1670, the English were advised to spare time in the garden. Remember, I told you that the regent, this was during the Regency era, that the regent was the person that filled in for the king when the king was not able to take his office. And in this case, it was the king's son. And so the regent of this era encouraged the nobility to farm and garden and to bring gentleman farming and to bring farming into a respectable, uplifted, elevated activity. Since 1670, the English were advised to spend spare time in the garden, either digging, setting out, or weeding, for there is no better way to preserve your health. Remember in Wives and Daughters, in one of the chapters, or if you've seen the movie, where the gardener asked Molly to help him because he wasn't as spry as he used to be, and she said, bring the spade and I'll show you how, or I'll help you. So she was involved too, even though she was a gentleman's daughter. Jane's mother, who lived to 88, gardened throughout her long life, once composing a few verses about the exercise. And here are the verses. My flesh is much warmer, my blood freer flows, when I work in the garden with rakes and with hoes. You know, if you're one of these people like me that just can't get warm, I would suggest exercise. Just dance a little bit by yourself, or go and work outside in the garden. And if you go out in the cold, if you live in a cold climate, going out in the cold makes you feel warmer when you come back in. Not only a legitimate workout for our bodies, spending 30 minutes planting a flower bed is the equivalent of a game of basketball lasting the same time. But you do some good, don't you? Our brains reap benefits too. Yes, it's good for the mind. Pottering about in a garden or just walking through one reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and refreshes us on a deep mental level. For Jane, the best rooms for writing always opened up on the garden. You know, I think that the modern home did not pay much attention to that, but your east room or your west room or your north or your south always had a certain light in it that would encourage creativity. And a lot of times houses are just plopped down any old place and sold without any thought of what effect it had on the human mind. But you can take whatever you have and you can create the best activities in whatever rooms that work best for you. For Jane, the best rooms for writing were always opened upon the garden. So that's why it's really important to have something out there, even if all you have is the deck and you have a plant out there. Where I go, refresh myself every now and then come back to solitary coolness. And then he goes into bathing. A little sea bathing would set me up forever, says Mrs. Bennet, referencing the most fascinating exercise of the era. On the surface, there doesn't seem to have been much to it. People went outside to the seaside, usually in winter, spent a minute or two dipping in the frigid ocean, and then called it a day. People swore by its health benefits, even though it was uncomfortable. And this was exercise? Interestingly, yes. Your body's biggest calorie-burning feature is keeping you warm at an average of 98.6 degrees, a huge energy-expending process, and because your body is always trying to maintain that temperature, exposing it to anything cold, especially cold water, kicks thermal regulation into high gear, burning large amounts of calories and body fat to keep your innards warm. The ancient Romans knew it, and the best way to work up an appetite was a quick plunge in a cold bath. They called it the frigidarium. So I want to stop there and read you something that someone sent me, because last time I talked to you, I had a scent of the day and a design of the day, which I don't have today. I'll try to do it next time. But remember, I discussed with you the benefits of rosemary, which is a beautiful herb that has it's slightly related to mint, has a slight mint scent to it. And so I want to read to you about rosemary now, and then something else. So it says rosemary is one of the most widely recognized herbal medicines. And drinking rosemary tea, you just chop it up with a knife or something and you put it in a teacup with hot water and let it sit a little bit. It'll be a real light color. It won't look like it's making a tea. It'll be almost clear. Drinking rosemary tea can help improve digestive processes. Rosemary tea supports healthy gut bacteria and improves nutrient absorption. Rosemary tea is rich in antioxidants that help boost overall health and prevent damage caused by free radicals. Rosemary helps boost immunity thanks to its rich concentration of antioxidants and vitamins. It contains high amounts of vitamin C, which has been shown to boost immune health and prevent potassium and calcium and prevent illness caused by bacteria and viruses. It also has a high concentration of vitamin A, magnesium, potassium, and calcium to keep your immune system working at peak levels. Rosemary tea contains caffeine and carnosol, which help to regulate blood sugar levels and promote heart health. It may help to lower high blood pressure. And this is written by Dr. Berg, or someone else, sorry. The Dr. Berg one is this one, and I wanted to read that one to you too. It has some interesting properties. It can help stimulate growth when used as an oil and applied to the scalp hair growth. One study showed a significant change when using rosemary to help inhibit cognitive decline. Another study showed that rosemary can increase insulin sensitivity and help with weight loss. Rosemary is also neuroprotective, and their benefits can be in epilepsy, pain relief, infertility, anxiety, constipation, muscle pain, diabetes, and inflammation. If you have insulin resistance, which is very common, rosemary is a good herb to use in your food on a regular basis. Well, ladies, I've gone beyond the time that I usually stay here, and I wish that I had the design of the day and the scent of the day. We'll pick that up later. And until I see you again, I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope you got a lot done today. And God bless you. Keep your eyes and mind on Christ. And I'll see you next time. Bye.